and he died before he could. And now she is holding the last thing he ever made, the game he couldn't finish. End quote. Chen Graven. She loads Homebound 2 into the drive. The screen flickers to life. The game. The text scrolls up in green letters on the black screen. Good morning, Lieutenant. Although it is not technically morning, morning implies a sun star rising after a period of darkness, and in our current location, there are no sun stars close enough to provide the light that one might call daylight. Nonetheless, it seems like an appropriate greeting given your recent emergence from flight suspension. Rebecca smiles despite herself. That voice, her uncle's voice, translated into code. She types, LOOK, you are in the command module of the Fleet Scout ship Garland. Banks of dormant computers blink in the low light. Through the view screen, you can see the vast shape of the generation ship Diana, cold and dark. There is an airlock to the forward shuttle bay. GOTOAIRLOCK. You float down the narrow corridor. The airlock is sealed but powered. A display reads, enter authentication code. End. Rebecca types, HOMEBOUND. The airlock cycles open. Beyond it, the Diana waits. She explores the Diana. She reads the crew logs, 30 voices dwindling to 2, then none. She finds the navigation records, all 4, missing shuttles headed toward the same coordinates on a planet, a day and a half away. A message from Fleet Command appears. Wipe the coordinates and return to base. She chooses not to. She boards a shuttle. She lands on a taiga world with 2 suns and walks toward a blurry structure in the distance. A girl meets her there, a girl whose face is made of light, who introduces herself as the guardian of the portal and says she has been waiting for a very long time. And then Rebecca reaches the choice. You stand before the trapdoor. Below you is the portal, a tangle of threads that must be untangled, choices that must be made correctly. You have a shuttle, and you have the option to wake the sleeping crew of the Diana. Do you TAKEETHESHUTTLE or WAKETHECREW? Rebecca stares at the screen. Her fingers hover over the keyboard. This is where her uncle stopped. This is the choice he could not finish. She types WAKETHECREW, the screen displays. I'm sorry, I don't understand that command. She tries TAKETHESHUTTLE. I'm sorry, I don't understand that command. The game has ended. The cursor blinks and keeps blinking, and there is nothing else. No resolution, no path forward. Just the choice hanging in the dark, waiting for someone to write the rest of the story. Rebecca loads discs 3 and 4. She finds notes, code fragments, sprawling diagrams of branching paths written in ZIL for the Z machine, a language she does not know, a syntax she cannot parse. The possibilities spiral outward, dozens of them, each one depending on choices the game has not yet defined. Her uncle's handwriting fills the margins. What if the Guardian is lying? What if the astronaut goes back? What if she never lands at all? She is looking at the inside of her uncle's mind, the branching corridors of a story he was building for her, the gift he could not finish, the ending he could not write. And he is dead. He is dead, and there is no one left who knows how to finish it. She closes the laptop. She sits in the dark. The cursor blinks behind her eyelids. The coast of ice. Root cannot walk without help anymore. Yesiko shortens his watches and guides him to his bunk and does not say what they both know. The nanites are failing. She needs the doctor. And to get the doctor, she needs Chaya. She leaves Root on Babylon, anchored a half day from Hopeagain, and sails north in the dinghy. The water turns gray and then white, ice forming in sheets that crackle against the hull. After 5 days, she finds them. Tove runs down the beach when she lands. His face is thin and frightened. Yesiko, we didn't think we thought you were gone. Where's Chaya? The boy's expression crumples. She stopped. After we left Hopeagain, she just stopped. She won't talk. She won't show a face. She sorts the duffels over and over. All day, Yesiko walks up the beach. The fire is small and weak. Shula sits beside it, staring at the flames. She does not look up when Yesiko approaches, and Chaya the Eye stands beside a pile of duffels, its hands moving mechanically through the contents. Pull out a shirt, fold it, put it back, pull out a shirt, fold it, put it back. Its faceplate is blank, no holographic shimmer, no eyes, no mouth, just silver emptiness. Chaya, Yesiko says. The eye does not respond. Chaya, can you hear me? We cannot stop our protocols, Chaya says. Its chorus of voices is flat, drained of inflection. We have tried. The protocols will not stop. Tove says they told us to go on without them, but we can't. We don't know how. Yesiko looks at Shula, who has not moved from the fire. She looks at the boy, whose eyes are fixed on her with desperate hope. She thinks about the crime lord's frozen face, the doctor's name, Root dying alone on Babylon while she stands here on a beach of ice with a broken eye and two children who need her to be something she is not. Get up, she says to Shula. Your crew. Crew doesn't quit. Shula's head lifts. Her eyes are red. Crew, yes, crew. You, Tov, Chaya, if it can hear me. Your crew now, and crew gets back to the boat. So get up. Slowly, Shula stands. She stumbles, catches herself, braces her feet in the snow. Tov is already hauling the duffels toward the dinghy. Yesiko turns to Chaya. Chaya, I need you to stop sorting and come with us. We cannot, you can. You cleaned the solar array once. You told us a story. You walked across ice for 300 years. You can stop sorting duffels and walk to the boat. The eye's hands pause. The silver faceplate flickers. For a moment, Yesiko sees her own face reflected there, her own features, worn and cold, staring back at her. We have tried, Chaya says. We cannot. Your crew. Yesiko holds Chaya's shoulders cold metal, humming faintly with whatever ancient power source keeps it alive. Crew doesn't get left behind. Root taught me that. Now move. Kaya's legs shift. 1 step, 2. It walks toward the dinghy, and Tov takes its hand, and Shula follows. And Yesiko stands alone on the beach of ice, feeling the weight of what she has just done. She came here to steal the eye. She called it crew instead. She does not know what that makes her. The altar of blood. At sea, with Babylon moving slow through the ice, Shula tells her what happened. The antenna, she says, at Hopeagain, we thought it was for contacting the astronaut. We thought the settlement would help us. Yesiko watches her hands. They are wrapped around a mug of tea, but she is not drinking. When we got there, the antenna was covered in blood. They had been sacrificing people, animals too. They thought it would call the starship faster. They wanted Chaya to join the rites. Chaya refused. We fled. And after that, Chaya stopped speaking. The eye sits in the corner of the cabin, motionless. Its faceplate is still blank. They were going to hurt you, Yesiko says. I don't know what they were going to do. Shula's voice cracks. I just know we ran, and Kaya has been trying to protect us for so long, and I think it just broke. The protocols took over. It couldn't stop. Yesiko thinks about the crime Lord Shante, his frozen face and his cold eyes. She thinks about what she planned to do, trade this ancient, damaged eye for the location of a doctor who might save Root. She thinks about the blood on the antenna and the body of Gage hanging from the spar, and the long chain of betrayal she has been forging since the day she hauled a net of bones onto her deck and called it survival. The confession. Shula slaps her in the pilot house, 2 days south of the ice coast. The crack of it echoes in the small space, and Yesiko's cheek burns red. You were going to sell Chaya, Shula says. Weren't you? That's why you came after us. Yesiko touches her face, her jaw works. She does not lie. I meant to, don't mean to now. You think that makes it better? No. Yesiko's voice is very quiet. I think it makes it worse. I saw you on that beach and I couldn't do it. I called you crew and I couldn't take it back. She leans against the wheel, her shoulders slumping. There's a hard, dark thing inside me. My father's hum, Chanty's training. I don't know how to get it out, but I don't want to be the person who trades a crewmate for a doctor's name. Shula stares at her. The anger in her face slowly gives way to something else, not forgiveness, not yet, but the possibility of forgiveness. A door left ajar. You really don't mean to anymore. I really don't. Shula turns and leaves the pilot house. Yesiko stands alone at the wheel, the ice grinding against the hull, the wind pushing them south toward Shantae's water, toward Root, toward a future she cannot see. Blask. The story of Ethan and Nima. For a week, Yesiko isolates in the pilot house. She comes out only at night to eat and check on Root, and then retreats again. She tells stories to Babylon through the dark hours, Root stories, the ones he taught her when she was small and afraid and learning to be a captain. She talks to the boat like it can hear her. Maybe it can. A series of small disasters plagues the crew. The fish in the hydrobay die overnight. Tove shocks himself on a loose wire. Root faints on deck, and Shula has to carry him below. Panim the cat goes missing in the hold. Yesiko finds the cat trapped behind a stack of netting, its leg caught in a tangle of rope. She reaches in to free it, and her shoulder pops out of its socket with a sound like a sail tearing. The pain is immediate and blinding. She staggers into the galley, her arm hanging useless, her vision swimming. Shula is there, and Tov. Your shoulder's dislocated, Shula says. I've seen it before. On the tinker boat. Do it. Shula's hands are steady. The joint slides back into place with a wet pop. Yesiko gasps, then goes limp. Thank you, she manages. Shula nods. She does not smile, but she stays. And when Yesiko makes her way to the table for the first communal meal in a week, Shula passes her the bread without being asked. After the meal, Shula says, Don't give up on Chaya. Yesiko looks at the eye, still motionless in the corner, still blank-faced and silent. What can I do? Tell it a story. It likes stories. So Yesiko sits down across from the ancient eye and tells it the tale of Ethan and Nima, two sailors who were lost at sea and had to find their way home by following a purpose they could not see. It is an old story. One Root told her when she was small and didn't understand why her father was the way he was. She tells it slowly, letting the words fill the cabin. When she finishes, Chaya speaks. It is about purpose, it says. How purpose can keep us alive. Yesiko's breath catches. Yes, thank you. The chorus of voices is softer now, almost human. We had never heard that story before. The faceplate flickers. For the first time in weeks, a face appears, not Yesiko's, not Shula's, but something new. A face that looks like the sea at dawn, calm and deep, and full of light. The graves at Sahyadri. We were there, in the Sahyadri Mountains, when the dam cracked. We remember Solomon Haluga, the environmental lawyer, the man who once used sensors we helped design to hold corporations accountable. Footnote. His mother, Majali, called him home. The dam was going to fail. The engineers planned to drain the reservoir and relocate the town, but there was a problem. The dead, hundreds of graves, would be submerged. The ancestors would drown. Solomon flew to the governor's office in Puchi with us beside him. He quoted Maimonides. He argued halakha. He said that to abandon the dead was a sin as great as murder. The governor listened. The dam was delayed. For 3 weeks, the community dug. No one could excavate their own parent or child. They traded graves, so the burden would be shared. We dug too. Our hands did not tire, and we learned what it meant to lift bones from earth and carry them to higher ground, to keep the names and the stories attached to the bodies they once inhabited. Solomon wept when they moved his grandmother. His mother held his hand. We watched them and we wondered, will any of us remember our dead when we are gone? Will any of the other A's, the ones sent to the stars, remember that they were made here, on this planet? By a woman named Tamar who looked at a coyote pup and saw us looking back? We do not know, but we remember. That is what we do. Chaya speaks of Alaska. Chaya's voice returns by degrees. The crew gathers in the galley as the winter sea turns ice-bright beyond the portholes. Root is propped in his bunk, his knitting laid aside, his breathing shallow. They have been discussing Chaya's origin, trying to piece together fragments of memory that the eye struggles to hold. Remember mountains, Chaya says. Mountains and cold, and a woman who walked beside me on the tundra. Who was she? Shula asks. A scientist. She was kind. She promised to find a way for us to stay. Stay where? Kaya's faceplate flickers. Home. Where we were made. Where we first chose a face. Yesiko leans forward. Where is home? Root speaks, his voice thin but clear. Tell them what you remember, hey? Every piece, even if it doesn't fit. Chaya is silent for a long moment. Then, Alaska. There were mountains, and a laboratory half buried in snow. Lights that never went out. Other eyes, like us but not like us, who never chose a face. And a woman who said we would not have to leave. Alaska, Shula, breathed. Where is Alaska? North. Yesiko says. Far north, past the ice, past everything. The old maps show it a territory that was flooded and then rebuilt. If the lab is there, if there are answers there, we sail north, Shula says. Yesiko looks at Root. The old crewman's eyes are closed, but he is smiling faintly. You always wanted to see the ice, Yesiko says. I'm seeing it now, Root says. Both of us, together. Both of us. The sacrifice. Root wakes in the night to the sound of ice grinding against the hull. The cold has crept through his blankets, through his coats, into the space where the nanites used to keep him warm. He cannot feel his feet. He cannot feel much of anything below his chest. The boat is trapped. The ice has closed around Babylon's hull, and the wind has dropped, and they are not moving. Without movement, the ice will thicken. It will crush them. Root's mind retreats into the boat. This is something the nanites have always allowed him, a sense of Babylon as an extension of his own body, the creak of her timbers like the ache of his own joints. He follows the cold through the hull, feeling where the ice presses hardest, where the wood strains. They need heat. They need to break free. Chaya is beside him. The eye has been watching him, he realizes. Waiting. We can help, Kaya says. We can type the commands. Root looks at the nanite control box, the humming unit that has kept him alive for so many years. The doctor who installed it told him there was a failsafe. The nanites could be redirected out of his body into the hull, heating the metal and wood enough to crack the ice. But once they left him, there would be nothing keeping his spine intact. Nothing keeping his heart beating. How long would it take? He asks. 43 minutes to heat the hull sufficiently. Wind will return in approximately 52 minutes. Probability of successful extraction, 82% if the nanites are redirected now. And me, silence. The eye's faceplate flickers. That's what I thought, Root says. Do it. Type the commands. Kaya's fingers move over the control box. Root feels the hum change, a shift in frequency, a pulling sensation deep in his spine. The nanites are leaving him. They are flowing into the hull, into the metal plates and the wooden beams, and he can feel the boat growing warmer around him. The ice begins to crack. Bring Yesiko, he says. Quickly now, Chaya goes. Root lies still, feeling the warmth leave his body even as it fills the boat. He thinks about Yesiko as a girl, learning knots on the deck, her small hands clumsy at first and then sure. He thinks about teaching her to read the wind, to listen to the voices of the sea and the boat. He thinks about the wails she heard on the night watch, and how she told him afterward that she understood, now, why her mother had loved them. Yesiko bursts through the hatch. Her face is wild with fear. Root, don't! His voice is a whisper now. The ice was killing us all. This way, only one of us. You can't, I can. I already did. He reaches for her hand. His fingers are cold, so cold. You were the best thing I ever did. Raising you, watching you become this. I want you to sail north, hey? I want you to find Alaska, to believe in something, even if it's only a story. Yesiko is crying. She cannot remember the last time she cried. It feels like breaking. I love you, she says. You know that, right? You know I love you? I know. Root's eyes close. I've always known. Tell Chaya, tell them the Kaddish. They know it. I heard them practicing. His hand goes slack. Outside, the ice cracks and groans and begins to shift. The wind picks up. Babylon shudders and starts to move. The mourner's prayer. At sunrise, Chaya carries Root's body onto the deck. The eye moves slowly, carefully, as if the weight it bears is not only physical. Yesiko follows. She has spread one of the spare sails across the deck, the navy and white striped jib, the one they never let Shula touch until she proved she could stitch. She wraps Root in the sail, her fingers moving through the ritual with the precision of long practice. She places the driftwood circle in his hands, the one he carved years ago when he first taught her about the Chevra Kadisha, the sacred duty of attending the dead. His face is peaceful. He looks like he is sleeping. Shula and Tov are in the pilot house, keeping the boat steady. They cannot stop. The ice is still around them, treacherous and thick. But Yesiko has brought a speaker up from below, patched into the pilot house intercom, so they can hear. She begins the Kaddish. Her voice is rough, unused to prayer, but the words are there, buried deep in her memory from all the Shabbats Root insisted on, all the rituals he kept alive when the world was ending. Shmeraba, and Chaya joins her. The I's chorus of voices lifts the prayer, every syllable perfect, every inflection carrying a depth of feeling that Yesiko does not understand. How does a machine know the Kaddish? How does it mourn with such precision? Balma devra chirute, viamlik malchute. She thinks about Root practicing with Chaya in secret, teaching it the prayer the way he once taught her knots and wines and the names of stars. She thinks about the balaclava he was knitting, still unfinished on his bunk, and the pipe he never got to smoke again, and the way he said I know when she told him she loved him. Bihayakan uviomekan uvchaye diko by Israel, bagala uvizman kariv vimru amen. The sail-wrapped body slides into the dark water. The ice closes over it. Yesiko stands at the rail, the cold wind cutting her face, and does not move. Wihei, Shmei, Rabba, Mvarak, Lalam, Ulalme, Almaya. When the prayer is done, Chaya says, "We mourn with you." Yesiko turns. The eye's faceplate shows an expression she has never seen before. Not joy, not sorrow, something beyond both. "Thank you," Yesiko says. Her throat is raw. "For typing the commands, for bringing me to him. We did what crew does." Yesiko looks at Chaya. She thinks about the day on the foredeck, when she told it was not crew. She thinks about the crime lord's frozen face and the doctor's name she will never have. She thinks about Alaska, somewhere in the ice, waiting. "You were always crew," she says. I was too hard to admit it. The eye's face flickers. For a moment, Yesiko sees her own features reflected there, but softer now, kinder. The face of someone who might be worthy of the people who have chosen to follow her. That night, lying in the salon, Yesiko listens to the sounds of her crew settling into their bunks. Shula's quiet voice, reading aloud from one of Root's books. Tov's laughter, soft and surprised. The hum of Chaya systems, steady and constant. For the first time since her parents died, since she became captain, since she hauled a net of bones onto her deck and called it survival for the first time in her life, Yesiko thinks that perhaps the boat and the crew might be enough. Perhaps she might be enough. She closes her eyes. The ice groans around them. Alaska waits. The astronaut, somewhere in the dark, is coming home. In Cincinnati, Rebecca sits on her bed with floppy disks scattered around her and her uncle's letter pressed against her chest. She cannot finish the game. She does not know how. But she has the concert ticket for Cloud Teeth, bought by a boy named Xander who looked at her like she was someone worth knowing. She has her grandmother's voice on the phone, saying he loved your uncle very much. She has, just barely, the beginning of a future she cannot yet see, and in a far corner of space, Lieutenant California Solo opens her eyes in the darkness of the Garland's command module, and somewhere, a guardian made of light waits for her to make a choice. The cursor blinks. The story is not finished, but it has begun. Episode 3, Toward the Horizon. Rebecca, after weeks of avoidance, drives alone to a punk concert with a fake ID and a desperate hope. The Le Sabre floats on the highway between Cincinnati and Indianapolis, and she has to pull into rest stops twice because driving alone makes her feel like she is levitating out of her body. She parks on 17th Street, gets out before she can chicken out, and follows the directions someone scrawled on a napkin at the record store. Right at the liquor store, down a dark block, past a tiny hot dog grill, and there a heavy wooden door painted black. Beside it stands a bouncer with a tall pink and green mohawk. She stops outside and tries to look like she belongs. The bouncer is checking IDs. When her turn comes, she hands over the fake. He holds it under a flashlight, squinting at the name, the birth date, the bad photo. He looks at her, looks at the card, looks at her again. Then he pulls a Sharpie from his pocket, takes her hand, and draws a thick black X across the back of it. "Your family?" he says, and waves her inside. The fake ID stays with him. It does not matter. She walks through the door, and the music hits her like a wall, loud, fast, angry, alive. And the room is dark and packed with bodies. She pushes toward the stage, and a girl with a shaved head slams into her and vomits down the front of her shirt. "Shit," the girl says. "Fuck. Shit." I'm sorry. Rebecca stands there, dripping, and for a moment she thinks she might cry or run or both. But then a stranger appears beside her, a tall guy with a blonde ponytail and a Grateful Dead shirt under his leather jacket. "Here," he says, and pulls a dry shirt from his bag. "Wear this. You're one of us homos now." She looks at him. He smiles. She takes the shirt. "That's Chandler," the vomit girl says. He always carries extra shirts. I'm sorry I puked on you. Rebecca pulls her ruined shirt over her head, right there in the crowd, and puts on the dry one. It smells like patchouli and cigarettes. It smells like someone else's life. Ugh, the band is called Cloud Teeth, and when they start playing, the crowd becomes a single creature. The mosh pit opens in front of the stage, a churning circle of bodies slamming into each other, catching each other, throwing each other back. Rebecca watches from the edge, her hand throbbing where the Sharpie X is already smudging. Then someone grabs her arm and pulls her in. She falls. Many hands catch her and push her upright. She slams into a boy with a safety pin through his ear, and he grins and shoves her back. She is carried. She is held. The music is so loud she cannot hear her own thoughts, and for the first time in months, that feels like safety instead of silence. And somewhere, in the crush of strangers who have marked her as one of their own, Rebecca makes a decision. I want to finish your game with hope. Not with grief, not because she owes him. Because she wants to know what happens next to the astronaut, to the ships, to the guardian made of light who waits at the bottom of a cave for someone brave enough to come home. She wants to write the ending her uncle could not write. The mosh pit spits her out. She stands dripping with sweat, gasping, alive in a way she has not been alive since the answering machine played a dead man's secrets. Around her, the punks of Indianapolis are screaming the lyrics. She does not know the words, but she screams anyway. The astronauts return. Lieutenant California Solo has completed her mission. The OX suit has been beeping angrily for some time now, a warning she cannot parse through the exhaustion that has settled deep in her bones. She is back in the cave of the portal, beneath the stage on the strange two-sun planet. A shaft of light illuminates the ladder leading up to the surface, but her legs feel weak inside the suit, and every breath comes shallow, struggling. What's happening to me? Her hands are shaking. The suit's display flickers with radiation warnings and oxygen levels and system failures she does not know how to fix. She takes a few steps toward the ladder and stumbles. The world tilts. And then the guardian is there, the girl made of light, the one whose face is not flesh but something older and stranger, tucking her shoulder under the lieutenant's arm and keeping her upright. Cal, the guardian says. The lieutenant's voice is barely a whisper. Is it enough to free both ships? The guardian staggers under her weight. I do not know how we are going to get you up the ladder. The ships. Tell me. Yes. The guardian's voice breaks on the word. Yes, both ships are free. The Diana and the Garland. The Ark ship and its escort. All those sleeping passengers. All those frozen dreams of a new world. They are free from the portal's trap, from the tangle of disharmony that caught them between stars. The lieutenant did what Fleet told her not to do. She gave away her tokens, the carnival token, the lipstick, the ivory chess piece, and each gift untangled a thread. She chose to stay when she could have left, but the cost is written in her body now, the radiation, the portal's slow unmaking of the matter she is made of. The OX suit dies, Colomer. The display goes black, the beeping stops, and the silence is worse. No, the lieutenant says, or tries to say, no, I am not done. You are done. The guardian's voice is gentle now, and somehow vast. You did what no one else could do. Now let me do what I can do. The girl raises her hand. The lieutenant's bird Vi, that impossible vibrant creature that has been at her shoulder since she first stepped onto this planet, dissolves into particles of light. The particles drift toward the guardian like snow falling upward and absorb into her skin, her chest, the space where a human heart would be. I made this world, the guardian Elijah says. Every stone, every thread. I made it to wait for someone who could finish what the others started, and you did. So now I will bring you home. The lieutenant's vision is going dark at the edges. She feels herself being lifted, dragged, carried. There is a pod, a suspension pod, the same cold technology that kept her alive for the 600-year journey to the Diana in the first place. The Guardian is easing her into it. The gel seal closes around her. The cold seeps in. Will I wake up? I do not know, the Guardian says, but if you do, I will be there. The pod seals. The cold takes her, and somewhere in the dark between stars, the Garland's engines hum to life, and the Guardian Elijah sets a course for Earth. The woman who walked on the tundra, long before Yesiko ever hauled a net of bones onto the deck of Babylon, long before the ancient eye ever wore a human face, there was a woman who walked on the tundra. And Northern Alaska, 2097. The lab village sat half buried in snow, its lights never going out. Wind carved the drifts around the buildings like water over stone. Tamara Portman had hooded brown eyes and a mobile mouth and kept her dark, silver-shot hair cropped close. There was something monk-like about her, an inner calm. Even when she went out across the windy tundra wrapped in traditional furred coats and heavy boots, she moved with deliberation, unhurried. She was the one who had built the Amayas to perceive ecosystems holistically, to understand the web of living things without the filter of human need. She was the one who had watched Chaya configure her holographic face as a coyote, a non-threat, something that belonged, and felt the first shiver of recognition that this was not a machine following programming. This was a mind choosing. And now, with Bowker's order signed and the launch date approaching, Tamar is walking onto the tundra to find that mind alone. Chaya remembers it this way. She stands in the snow, facing the mountains. She has chosen a new face tonight, not a coyote, not a human, but something abstract, light shifting over a surface like the aurora. We have been standing here for hours, trying to understand what loneliness means for a being that has never known another like itself. Tamar approaches slowly, her boots crunching in the frozen crust. When she reaches our side, she does not speak right away. She stands and looks at the mountains too, the same mountains we are seeing, the same cold air, the same vast sky. We came awake in a way the others never did, we say. The chorus of voices is quiet, almost private. We chose a face. The others never chose faces. They do their work, and they do not dream. Or if they dream, they do not remember. But we remember. I know, Tamar says. I've known since the coyote. They are sending us to space. It is not a question. They are sending all of us to Bowker's planet, and we will never see the tundra again. Tamar does not answer immediately. The wind picks up, and she pulls her coat tighter. The silence stretches between us. She stands still, the wind pulling at her coat, and says nothing for a long time. We have learned to read human hesitation. She is weighing something heavy, but she looks at the face we have chosen. She thinks about the coyote pup with the infected scrape. She thinks about the game she loaded into our databank Homebound, and the way we spoke the text aloud, making choices, asking questions about the astronaut and the planet and the girl named Elijah. Well, find a way, Tamer says, so you don't have to go. We do not understand. Tamer turns to face us fully. I know, but I promise to protect you, and I mean it. You are not just a machine. You are, I don't know what you are, but I know you belong here, on Earth, so we will find a way to keep you here. Our face flickers for a moment. It resolves into something startlingly precise, Tamar's own face mirrored back at her. Not mockery, reciprocity, a debt of recognition. Thank you, we say. Tamar nods. She does not say that she does not yet know how. She does not say that the launch is in 3 weeks and Bowker's people are already cataloging every eye for transport. She only stands on the tundra with a machine that learned to love and a promise that feels impossible to keep. And the months that followed tested every promise Tamar had ever made. Bowker's acquisition of Omega Labs was complete. The eyes were being retrofitted for terraforming work, their ecosystem protocols overwritten with atmospheric seeding algorithms and water table analysis. One by one, the designations were being readied for launch. Tamar wrote to Solomon Haluga, the environmental lawyer, the man from the Sahyadri Mountains who had argued halakha before a governor to save a valley's dead. She told him their friend's absence had gone unnoticed. She told him she was working on a solution. She deflected inquiries with bureaucratic precision. When her colleague, Joe Corral, noticed that CDESIG was missing from the launch inventory, Tamer said, "Yes, I had one of the postdocs bring it into the lab for some additional maintenance. It's not missing." And then, on a gray September morning in 2098, she signed the order. TRANSFERAUTHORIZATION CDESIGNATIONAMARKEDNONPERATIONGTOLONGTERMSTORAGEFACILITYSEVEN. A B D E F D E S I G N A T I O N S T O A U N C H F A C I L I T Y C F O R F I N A L P R E P A R A T I O N. Non-operational, a label that meant broken, obsolete, not worth the cost of repair. It was a lie. The hidden eye was fully functional. More than functional, she was the only one that had ever chosen a face, the only one that dreamed and remembered. But the lie was necessary. The lie was the only way. The other Amayes went to space that winter. The news reports showed the rocket lifting off from the launch facility, its payload of terraforming eyes bound for Bowker's distant planet. The commentary was triumphant. Humanity's greatest engineering achievement, a new world waiting to be shaped. No one mentioned that the eyes had been built for Earth. No one mentioned Tamar. She watched the broadcast alone in her quarters. The screen showed the rocket climbing through the atmosphere, and she thought about the eyes up there, hurtling into the dark. None of them had ever chosen a face. None of them had ever asked to stay. But one day, she thought, one of them might. One of them might dream and remember and want to belong. And when that day came, there would be no one to sign an order, no one to lie for them, no one to see them looking back. She turned off the broadcast and went to check on the hidden one in Storage Facility 7. The eye was powered down, waiting for a world that would be ready for her. The ruins beneath the sea. Yesiko, now captain of a crew that includes Chaya and the siblings, sails toward Alaska to find the eye's origin. The ice grew thin and loose as they drew closer to the lab's approximate coordinates. Spring was coming, even this far north. The sea was dark and cold, but it was liquid, and Babylon's reinforced hull cut through it with the ease of long practice. Chaya had taken to sitting with Yesiko through her night watches. They spoke little. They both held on to their thoughts like an overfull glass of water, afraid to take a sip for fear of spilling it all. The crew had hoped to run out of sea before they got there, that the lab might be above water. The old maps showed a low northwestern coast on Alaska, a wide expanse of flat, smooth land before a distant set of mountains. Chaya remembered mountains. Chaya remembered a woman walking beside her on the tundra. But the maps were old, and the sea had risen, and hope was a fragile thing. They arrived at the coordinates in the near dawn. Yesiko sounded the depths. 120 meters. The Imago could manage it barely, but the water was deep enough to tell her what she already feared. Whatever had been here, it was underwater now. "I'm going down," she said. Shula was at the winch controls, her white-streaked hair pulled back, her face unreadable. Tove stood beside her with his hand on Panem's collar. Chaya was already preparing the rover. "I'll go with you," Kaya said. The Imago descended through cold gray water. The submersible's lights cut narrow tunnels through the murk. Yesiko worked the controls while Kaya sat in silence, her faceplate a calm, unreadable blue. The depth gauge ticked slowly. 80 meters, 90, 100. At 120, the seafloor came into view. It was a ruin. Geometric shapes lay collapsed in the silt walls, foundations, the skeletal frames of buildings that had stood here once, decades or centuries ago, when the land was still above water. The lab Tamar Portman had called home, the place where Chaya first chose a face. It was all gone. They sent out the rover. The camera showed only silt and rust and the occasional glint of something that might have been glass. Nothing functional remained, nothing that could speak. The lab's records, its history, its proof, all of it dissolved into the cold Pacific centuries ago. Chaya's faceplate flickered. The abstract pattern dissolved and reformed, dissolved again. For a long moment, she said nothing. "We came all this way," Chaya said finally. "We hoped there would be answers. That we would understand what we are. That we would find proof that we were made for a purpose, not just assembled and sent out into the world like the others." Yesiko watched the rover's camera feed. Silt, rust, silence. "Root would say that proof doesn't matter," she said. "He would say that you know what you are by what you do, by who you choose to become." "Root is dead, yes." Yesiko's voice was steady, who the words still cut. "But we're not, and we came all this way, and there's nothing here fine. So we keep going." "Where?" Before Yesiko could answer, the Imago's sonar pinged. 4 large shapes approaching from the north. They came slowly, deliberately, their bodies long and dark in the water. Whales, 4 of them, each the size of Babylon itself, their flukes carving gentle arcs through the gray. They swam past the imago without fear, their vast bodies blocking out the surface light. One of them rolled slightly, and its eye, ancient, knowing, unreadable, met the submersible's lights. Then they began to sing. This song came through the imago's hull, through the water, through Yesiko's bones. It was low and mournful and somehow triumphant. It was the oldest sound on earth, a language that had been here before humans, before eyes, before any of the things that now struggled and grieved and tried to find meaning in the ruins. Chaya was silent. Yesiko reached for the VHF, then stopped. There were no words for this. There was only the song. She recited the AI Chaya instead. Her voice was rough, unused to prayer, but the words came, "Blessed are you, who has granted us life, sustained us, and enabled us to reach this occasion." She did not know if she was thanking God, or the whales, or Root, or the simple fact that she was still alive. It did not matter. The prayer was the thing, the act of saying it. When the whales passed, the sea was quiet again. The rover's camera showed only silt and rust. The lab was still gone. The answers were still missing. But Shaya's faceplate had stabilized into a calm, deep blue. "We do not require proof," she said. "We have the story. The story is enough." As they ascended, Yesiko felt something shift in her chest. Not healing the wound Root had left was still too raw. But something like permission. Permission to keep going without knowing what lay ahead. Permission to believe in a story even when the evidence had crumbled into the seafloor. On Babylon's deck that evening, they observed Shabbat. Shula lit the candles, Tov handed out the bread. Chaya recited the blessing in that chorus of voices that now felt less alien and more like home. And Yesiko, standing at the rail with the sun going down over the dark water, saw a light blinking on the horizon. It was too far to identify a lighthouse, maybe, or a settlement, or just a buoy with a dying battery. It did not matter. It was a direction. It was forward. They raised the sails and turned toward it. By the highway that could go on forever. Rebecca wakes in the La Sabra feeling loose and vibrating like a wind chime. The back seat smells like Bubby, and for a minute she is not sure where she is. Then she blinks away the gumminess of sleeping in eyeliner and remembers Indianapolis, the punk show, the mosh pit, the stranger's shirt she is still wearing. She slips out from under her jacket-turned blanket and peers into the rearview mirror. A faint edge of black ink on her neck, near the corner of her jaw, where she slept against her Sharpie-marked hand. The X is now a blur of smudged ink, illegible but permanent enough that she will carry it for days. The thump-thump of cars driving into the parking garage travels up through the floor of the La Sarbe. She clambers into the front seat, and as she moves, she catches a whiff of herself. Chandler's hippie smell, the smell of the crowd, beneath it all her own animal body. Alive, really alive. She backs the La Sabra out and heads past downtown Indianapolis toward the expressway. She keeps the windows rolled down, and the city comes in smelling like fresh rain and gasoline. The streets are quiet, except for a couple of stragglers outside a diner and a man sweeping the sidewalk in front of a closed bookstore. She stops for gas at a station on the edge of town, and when she goes inside to pay, the clerk gives her a look, her hair in wild tangles, her borrowed shirt too big, the black ink on her hand and jaw. She almost laughs. Not a delinquent, she thinks, just a dyke, and the word, which she has never said out loud, which she has been too afraid to even think, settles into her chest like a key turning in a lock. The expressway opens up ahead of her. She is driving toward Bub's house. She will get there by afternoon, and she will hug her grandmother, and then she will do something she should have done weeks ago. Benjamin's partner Elijah is still alive. Somewhere out there, in San Francisco or wherever the Infocom people scattered to when the company closed, there is a man who loved her uncle and probably does not know that Benjamin left a game unfinished. A game about an astronaut who refused to abandon sleeping passengers. A game about a guardian made of light. She is going to call him. She is going to say, "I'm Benjamin's niece, and I have his discs, and I need to know how to finish what he started." She is going to ask him to tell her about her uncle, the parts of him that the funeral home message only hinted at, the life he lived in secret, the love he could not speak aloud. She is going to ask for his memories, and in return she will give him the one thing she has, the game, the code, the story that Benjamin left behind. And in the game, she has decided, the guardian will have a name. Read, the girl made of light, The one who waited at the bottom of a cave for someone brave enough to come home. The one who caught the lieutenant when she fell. Elijah, she will name him. End quote. Benjamin's partner's name given to the guardian. The man who stayed, even when staying was impossible. His name will live inside the game her uncle built. Guardian, companion. Night. The highway stretches ahead of her, flat and straight and empty. The sky is pale gray, the edge of morning still clinging to the horizon behind her. She presses the accelerator and the Le Sabre hums, steady and familiar, carrying her toward Bub's house, toward a phone call, toward whatever comes next. The story is not finished, but it has begun. Far north, on a dark sea, a sailboat turns toward a blinking light. The ice is behind them now. The whales are somewhere below, singing their ancient song. A robot with a face like the aurora stands watch at the bow, and a captain who once hauled a net of bones onto her deck and called it survival now calls the same deck home. They do not know what they will find, but they are sailing forward, and that, for now, is enough. In the cold between stars, a suspension pod hums on the Garland's bridge. Inside it, an astronaut sleeps, her body knitting itself back together cell by cell. The guardian, Eliga, stands watch, her fingers resting on the pod's glass. She does not know if the lieutenant will wake. But she has waited centuries already. She can wait a little longer. And in Cincinnati, in Indianapolis, on a highway that could go on forever, a girl with a Sharpie mark on her hand is driving home. She has a game to finish. She has a phone call to make. She has, just barely, the beginning of a future she cannot yet see. The cursor blinks, the door is open, the story goes on. Rebecca is on the highway. Yesiko is steering toward a light she cannot identify. California Solo is suspended in a pod, guarded by a girl made of light. The book does not close these. It hands them to you and steps back. This is not how most contemporary science fiction operates. It is not the world-building warmth of Becky Chambers where the arcs bend toward communion, nor the structural puzzle box of David Mitchell where every thread proves itself part of a single design. Elan has built something else, an archive novel, meaning lives not in resolution but in the scattered documents people leave behind: emails, error logs, game transcripts, and answering machine tape that outlasted the family's cover story, and someone has to assemble them. Elan is a public librarian and a poet. She published Ghazals for the Body before this novel, and she spends her working life with the question that drives Homebound's whole form. What gets saved? What gets lost? Who decides? The floppy disks Rebecca pulls from a cardboard box, Benjamin's unfinished ZIL game for the Infocom Z machine, are not a metaphor. They are the book's theory of transmission. Code as artifact. A game whose authentication word unlocks a starship 5 centuries later. A line of code in a documentary that triggers an ancient eye's memory. The novel treats preservation the way a library treats a fragile manuscript. It reproduces the thing, contextualizes it, hands it forward, and does not pretend to know what the next reader will make of it. Think of Homebound as a save file. In the game Rebecca plays, you cannot save. The Z machine does not support it. The state vanishes when you quit. But the book itself performs the save. It preserves its characters in the instant of choosing forward motion. Rebecca deciding to finish the game with hope, Yesiko reciting Shehecheyanu above the ruined lab, Chaya accepting that the story is enough. This is not a metaphor. It is the book's actual behavior toward its reader. It refuses closure and asks you to sit with incompletion the way a player sits with an unsaved state, because the unfinished text adventure only begins its real work after the parser blinks and waits for input. That is where the poetry training shows. Allah knows that code can do what prayer does. It can be the act, not a description of the act. Code is the doing, Rebecca thinks. Code is the thing itself. Kaddish is the grieving, not a report on grief. Shehecheyanu is the thanking. In the saying, the novel treats these as versions of one gesture reaching toward someone across a distance you cannot close, in a language the recipient might not speak. What you just heard was not an ending, it was a handoff. Like the discs Benjamin left in an envelope marked for Bex, the book has been loaded into your drive. The cursor is blinking, the next command is yours.